Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining my webinar. My name is Brandon Campbell. I'm a director on the business development team at Ephesoft. And over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to do a brief recap of where the capture industry landed in 2019, and then talk through my top 5 tech predictions for 2020. Just a quick reminder, please ask questions in the Q&A window and I will address as many as possible at the end of the session, and I can follow up by email for those that I'm unable to get to. So before digging into the new decade, let's take a look at where we landed last year. To start, according to Gartner, worldwide IT spending only increased by 0.4% from 2018. The previous year, Gartner had predicted close percent growth globally, but they attributed tariff wars, specifically with the slow growth in China's tech spend, to this slump. Now, it's worth noting that within IT budgets globally, enterprise software spend, which is the industry we're in right now, has the highest rate of growth. According to IDC, the public cloud spend in 2019 topped out just under $210 billion. So from that giant chunk of change, the United States is the most significant public cloud market. We're expecting the total public cloud spend in the US to sum up to about $124 billion alone. Obviously, that's more than the rest of the world combined, but the countries closest to that in diminishing public cloud spend order would be China, the UK, Germany, and Japan. So they're definitely growing markets. News of the seemingly incredibly high valuations of some prominent RPA companies more than likely flooded your LinkedIn feeds for weeks. I know they flooded mine. After some further investment rounds, I know UiPath was valued at about $7 billion, and a little later in the year, Automation Anywhere announced a $6.8 billion valuation. But at the same time, we saw news of layoffs and stagnation and disappointments. Analysts panned the oversold promises of RPA vendors and the overhyped capabilities of technology. And in 2019, I think we saw some flatlining to the mania of robotic processing, mostly thanks to poor implementation planning and some failed customer rollouts. Lastly, in 2019, the EU did issue 27 fines in total for GDPR noncompliance to a tune of just under €500 million. So with all of the major regulatory bodies planning data privacy rules and regulations, I know in the United States are planning to put some out. I know it's happening in APAC as well. Companies that work with customer data, especially that are moving to the cloud in 2020, this is a pretty important number to note. So what do we have in trend for 2020? I think that this year we're going to see an increased IT spend, an even greater push to the cloud, a further rollout of departmental-only RPA projects, and we'll dig into that a little bit more, a greater focus on machine learning point solutions, and finally, the conflux of big data and machine learning. So according to Flexera's 2020 State of Tech Spend report, cloud spend, which includes SaaS and IaaS and PaaS, has finally surpassed on-premise software spend. So more than 80% of all of the study respondents from that Flexera report that were surveyed responded that they do plan to increase their as-a-service spend next year. But the reluctance that have been expressed by many security-conscious organizations for storing, processing, or routing documents to data in and through the cloud remains. That hasn't gone away. And I think we see that when we see the GDPR fines that have been leveraged. Companies of all sizes have embraced mission-critical business tools like CRM and ERP in the cloud, and as SaaS solutions specifically. Like, let's look at the wild success of Salesforce or NetSuite, respectively. So why aren't we as an industry extending the same principles to documents and data? Flexera found that the top IT initiatives for enterprise organizations from all of their survey respondents are digital transformation, cybersecurity, and the shift to the cloud. And I believe that this focus, in addition to that increased tech spend on enterprise software and cloud specifically, is going to see industries that previously refrained from cloud usage, like financial services, to start dipping their toes into the waters of the cyber sky, as it were. Now, for anyone that's unfamiliar with these acronyms, Let's just do a really quick recap and breakdown of future IT spend predictions, because this is really important when we're looking at the move to the cloud in 2020 and what IT specifically is spending their money on. So over the next 5 years, software as a service is going to be the largest category of cloud computing, and it's going to capture more than half of all public cloud spending globally. SaaS spending is comprised of applications, system infrastructure, software, and it's more than likely going to be dominated by enterprise application purchases, which again, for me is very exciting because that's the industry that I'm in. And Gartner specifically predicts that the leading SaaS applications are going to be CRM and enterprise resource or ERM management tools. Now, infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, might not necessarily be as familiar of an acronym for you, is forecasted to be the second largest category of public cloud spending, followed by platform as a service. IaaS is comprised of servers and storage devices, and it is thought to be the fastest growing category within all of public cloud spend, coming close to SaaS over the next 5 years. So probably not in 2020, but by midway through the decade, it's going to see something that's going to rival SaaS spending. And then PaaS spending is predominantly driven by the purchases of data management software, application platforms, integration and orchestration middleware. So more exciting for the true data pioneers that live in the world of IT. Now, I wanted to dive into this departmental rollouts of RPA systems, which might not necessarily be the most popular opinion, given the, as I mentioned earlier, insane valuations of these RPA companies. But I think there's some cracks in the foundation. Recently, one of my partners had expressed some dissatisfaction with using RPA tools. More specifically, she said that she was taking a step back from leading with RPA as a tool for digital transformation initiatives. And boiled down, the sentiment was that RPA in and of its own doesn't actually overhaul business processes or address the issues that are stemming from inefficient workflows. It simply makes slow processes faster. And based on some articles and reports that I've read over the last year, I think a lot of the analysts agree with that sentiment. There's this inherent flaw in the methodology of RPA vendors, and it's the almost exclusive focus on automation rather than transformation. Boiled down to the most basic level, RPA companies license their software by bot count. And the more processes, the more bots, the greater the purchase price. So it's not necessarily in an RPA vendor's best interest to solve a problem or perform the due diligence required to identify useless or superfluous processes. So with that myopic gaze, enterprise success to truly scale out across an entire organization, it's going to have its limits. Now, I'm not trying to take away from the insane ROI that's possible with what an RPA system can do to automate the human clicks when working through an application, or to integrate antiquated or older technology with new applications. There's a ton of potential there. I just think that it's a little bit short-sighted in where we're going to go from an enterprise perspective, and it's not providing bots with the ability to truly learn from their own actions. So there isn't true AI incorporated into bot activity. I think that the consultancies and the RPA partners that work with their clients for true process evaluation and a deep analysis of the business workflows are going to have the greatest success and the likeliest, or the highest likelihood, I guess I should say, of true digital transformation. Now, this year, we witnessed a handful of veteran technology companies and emergent startups announce purported machine learning capture platforms with varying degrees of success and follow through. And I mean, it comes down to chasing the elusive market share of machine learning, which is just an unavoidable buzzword. Software vendors are working to incorporate machine learning into their technology stack for all of the obvious benefits. The problem, though, is having the framework in place to leverage those ML algorithms to automatically identify and extract data isn't necessarily the challenge. The hurdles that need to be surmounted are the in-house or outsourced industry expertise and access to a large enough sample set of data to deliver a machine learning model that can automate the identification and extraction of data from day one, from the moment that client goes into production. During a meeting with a customer prospect recently, this quote that you see here, one of the project evaluation team members said something to the effect of, well, that's the value of machine learning and artificial intelligence. It just does it automatically. And ladies and gentlemen, this can't possibly be further from the truth. Customers do not want to invest the time and the effort into providing that knowledge and content, in addition to having to pay for access or license to use of the solution. But if you're working with a technology vendor that's proposing an ML-only application without a specific use case framework in place, that's likely going to be the case. So I have two important points to note here. One, in the world of content capture, machine learning powered solutions require some kind of input. It might need thousands of document samples or an end user entering and correcting data, but input and time is required, which leads me to point number two. Vendor trade models will be the way to go if you as a customer or your client doesn't want to spend a year inputting data into a system to make a solution viable. In 2020, I'm predicting that there's going to be a much greater focus on point solutions for industry or department-specific capture use cases. And I think that the successful startups with a small customer base will be able to develop niche solutions that tackle documents and data of a specific and narrow industry. And the larger software vendors with a more robust network will be able to expand their ML-driven capture offering to a greater number of use cases with a shorter ramp-up timeline. To survive and to thrive in this machine learning mad climate, specialization in the form of point solutions will be critical. And it is going to be incredibly important for vendors to be realistic and upfront with their clients about what is and isn't possible, because similar to some of the RPA hype, there's some mania around machine learning that has given clients and end users and consumers of application the wrong impression about what is and isn't possible. And I think that's pretty dangerous. Lastly, I'm going to go with context being king here as my final trend prediction for 2020. Big data has been trending in the technology industry for the better part of a decade. So experts and analysts alike predicted that big data was going to solve all of the problems in the world just through its intrinsic value realized by predictive analytics. The focus on big data predated machine learning as an ideal solution by a few years, but the mania of machine learning and its potential to automate workflows and provide insights matches that we saw of big data a decade ago. However, the value of big data and the illuminations it can provide is only as good as the source of the data, its completeness and its cleanliness, to use some data jargon there. According to a Kaggle Machine Learning and Data Science survey, 40% of a data scientist's time is spent on data cleansing. So with a primary focus on structured data and the process of cleansing it, most data scientists are only interacting with a fraction of the organizational data that's available to them. This means that they have an incomplete picture of the information they're working to manipulate. Similarly, the machine learning model created is only as good as the samples used and the input provided to build it. So if you're using a small sample set or don't have the industry expertise, the model that's being built is going to be far from complete. So what do we get in the Vesica Pisces, the circles when big data and machine learning overlap? We get contextual data, we get context. Context is the realization of all of that potential and hype when big data is inclusive of unstructured content and machine learning models are created by industry experts and designed to alleviate informational problems. 2020 is going to be the year where context is going to reign king. So to recap, 2020 holds great promise for IT-related activity. I think it's pretty well agreed upon that we're going to see an increase in IT spend, that key growth will be coming from enterprise software sales. So if you're in my particular line of business, there's a lot of opportunity for this year and beyond. We're going to see a continued push to the public cloud, primarily in the United States, but gaining traction in APAC and EMEA as well. Possibly not the huge growth that we expect in 2020, but by 2025, the anticipation is that those markets are going to be well underway where the US is today. I believe that there's going to be a bit of a flat line with RPA purchases. Rollouts of RPA are going to continue, in my opinion, to be departmental only, But our PA vendors are going to make a lot of noise about investing in ML for more agile bots, which I think is a great thing. And then most exciting to me is a burgeoning surge in point solutions that are ready to use from day one and that rely heavily on machine learning and semantic understanding. And finally, we're going to see an emerging new industry for contextual data. As it relates to data and processes, context is king. Thank you all so much for your time, and I'll do a quick check to see if we have any questions, which I do not believe we do at the moment. So again, thank you for joining. Please feel free to send me an email or visit our website if you have any questions. I'll stay around for another couple minutes in case anyone has any questions. Thank you.